Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We are good. It's fun to be able to talk to you guys. This is interesting.
It is.
I'm really excited.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We're just sitting over top, like we're on Katie's bed with the little computer, like little schoolgirls.
I feel like we're having a sleepover. Or
It's like a sleepover moment.
Hey,
It's
like
really
a slumber
cute.
party over there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
For sure.
Bloody Mary.
Let's not do Bloody Mary.
No.
Oh my God.
Or yes.
Candyman.
No.
Ooh.
Bloody Mary drinks.
That would be good.
Candy to eat
I'm into it.
and men.
Yes.
Yes. I'm into it.
That should be a whole theme, like urban legend party theme.
Urban legend meets adulthood.
Yes.
I'm into
I
it.
thought you were going to
Exactly.
say adult party. I was like,
I mean,
okay.
that too.
Or that too. Yeah, exactly.
Opt in. So we are very, very excited to talk to you guys about the new, Netflix craze, The Staircase. We know you guys did a live stream, but we haven't listened to it yet because we didn't want it to bias us. So we kind of just wanted to, have a conversation about it and kind of, because I'm totally fascinated by it. Kenny hasn't seen a minute of it. But he's along for the ride.
I'm along for the ride. I'm not, okay, side note, Katie's the true crime person more so than I am. So I just don't, gravitate towards that naturally. So, I don't even know. What is this? Something about a staircase? I don't know. Staircase to where?
Heaven.
Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite literally, yes.
It's actually a biopic on Led Zeppelin.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I'm obsessed with the case, and I hate it, but I love it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So when did you, I guess, first, because apparently this case is like a big deal. Like apparently people have been into this for a long time, and honestly, I had never heard about it until My Favorite Murder covered it on when their 100th episode first aired. But before that, I had never really heard much about it, so it hasn't been like a huge deal for me until recently.
Okay. Well, hold on, Kerri.
Okay.
So, Kerri loves true crime and loves the ID. She watches like Dateline. I don't like Dateline really, but she watches all of that. Well, one night we were sitting there and the TV was on and Dateline came on, and she's ADHD, so she was like watching that while I'm talking and all that. Well, then she's like, there was a case, and she tells me the whole thing about this case. She's like, it's kind of like this, but then there's like what did you call it? Like some bird or something.
I think I said there was an eagle.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, what the fuck? That's so stupid. And so we continue watching it. And then it's like at the very end, and a neighbor says about an owl theory. And she was like, oh. And I was like, damn, we're watching the same thing that you just told me. And that was like, what, a year ago?
Oh, a long time ago. And meanwhile, the episode was like 2 hours. So we paused it for me to give her this whole spiel about this story. And we sat there for the 2-hour episode. And then it was like, oh, this is what I just told you. It's the same thing.
Because she doesn't remember a lot of details all the time. If y'all listen to us, she's not a detail-oriented person.
Yeah.
So she did not know it was the same thing, even though it was the same thing. Like, she couldn't remember his name or anything like that. So, yeah, that was when it started.
Yeah, so I think I've been into this story since the beginning. Like, since it first was on, like, all those, like, 48 hours, all of that. And I want to say that happened, like, before the verdict came down.
Oh, really? That it was being covered by 48 Hours and stuff before we actually had the first verdict.
Because you know how 48 Hours, like, they'll follow the story from the beginning, and then like at the very end of the episode, they tell you like how the jury voted or whatever. It was like that. So like that, so it was like right after it happened.
Huh. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it never, I don't know why it was never on my radar, because it is really interesting, but I guess marital crimes are not really my spiel, so I think maybe I opted out of it for a long time because of that, and didn't really, I guess, realize how interesting it actually was until more recently.
There are so many moving parts to this story that we could make 15 podcasts about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a 13 episode Netflix series about it.
Right, exactly. That takes place over a series of years. So,
yes,
I guess we should try to walk Kenny and whoever else that might be listening who doesn't know the story of this case. I guess we should try to, like, walk them through a Cliff Notes version. God help us.
I just need you to gingerly take my hand and walk me down or up the staircase.
Ooh, girl.
That's a lot of trust in us. You had me at holding your hand.
It is. You might be taking the elevator from now on for a while.
Well, I mean, I do that anyway. I'm too fat and lazy to take the stairs.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna do it.
Yes. You take us through it.
Picture it.
Okay. Okay, Golden Girl.
Get comfortable. You ready for it? All right, picture it. Durham, North Carolina.
Oh,
shit. 1992?
Yes. Durham, North Carolina.
He doesn't realize that this case happened, like, really close to where we grew up.
Oh.
Well, and then, like, I used to live in Greensboro for a while, which is literally, like, not that far. I'm very familiar with the Durham area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. You might be related to him.
Damn.
Girl, we might be.
All right. I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay. So, Michael Peterson was married to Kathleen Peterson. He used to be a novelist. She, I don't know, has some fancy job that they had a lot of money.
It was like Nextel or something like that.
Beats me. Something with technology. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so they were married. They had both been married before. Kathleen had a daughter from a previous marriage, and Michael had 2 sons from a previous marriage, and then he had 2 daughters that he had adopted from a friend who had passed away. So the Brady Bunch comes together, and they're living in this huge, like, 14-bedroom house in Durham, living their best life. He says they used to always like to drink wine, watch movies, drink wine, go sit out by their pool. And then, so on this one night, Kathleen had to do some work because she had this huge work meeting the next morning. And so they had sat outside by the pool for a little while and drank wine. They drank like 2 bottles of wine, he said. And then she was like, okay, I have to go up and do some work. And she had left her work computer at home. At work. So she had to use his computer. So she goes up to do her work. He sits out by the pool for about 45 more minutes, drinking, that sort of thing. He goes inside, and he finds her laying at the bottom of the stairs. And so he calls 911, and he's like, 1810 Cedar Street, blah, blah, whatever their address is. And he's not Fox Hollow. No, that's that other serial killer.
Yeah.
He's like,
Our lives.
Yeah. He's like, send help. She's still breathing. And they're like, sir, what happened? He's like, my wife fell down the stairs. She's still breathing. Send help. And they're like, okay, sir, how many steps did she fall down? He's like, what? Stairs. Yeah, the back stairs. And they're like, sir. He's like, send an ambulance. And she's like, somebody else is dispatching the ambulance. Sorry, you got to calm down. And he was like, stairs, 15, 20, I don't know. Somebody send help, and hangs up. And so then he calls back, and kind of the same, like, super drama.
He said that she was still breathing.
Yeah, he did say that she was still breathing, send help, yada, yada, yada. Well, in that time, his son comes home from a party, that was just down the street.
But he doesn't live there.
Yes. And, So the ambulance gets there and she's dead. The police get there and they start asking questions because the first thing that they notice is that there's a shit ton of blood everywhere.
Ooh.
Not only is there a shit ton of blood, she has blood at the bottom of her bare feet, and on the back of her sweatpants, she has a bloody footprint. And so they immediately start to kind of question Michael Peterson, like, what happened? What's going on? Well, Michael Peterson's brother is an attorney. And so his son shut it down and said, don't talk. I'm calling your brother. We're getting you an attorney. Don't talk. And so from there, it's kind of been this whirlwind of he says he's innocent. Again, there was a ton of blood everywhere. They said she had 7 lacerations on the back of her head that via the autopsy was deemed inconsistent with a fall from the stairs, and it was consistent with homicidal blows. And so on the wall there was marks of blood that had looked to be smeared and white with blood on top of it. And so the theory is that he beat her, and she wasn't, he tried to clean it up, but she wasn't actually dead, so he had to beat her again, which is how blood splatter got on top of the wiped away. There were luminol footprints like throughout the house, bloody footprints and shoes. But when the ambulance got there, he was barefoot. He didn't have any shoes or socks on. He was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and he had said he was sitting outside by the pool, and it was like December.
It was like 50 degrees.
It was December. And he had some blood on the inside of his shorts. There's a lot of issues with the blood splatter, though. We'll go into that. So they charge him. He gets the best defense attorney known to man, David Rudolph, who is, like I said this one on our live, I was like, look, if I ever get accused of murder, all of y'all better refinance your house and get me him as an attorney, because
For
he
real.
is the best.
For real.
There's somebody that I've watched on something ID that he was the attorney for, and I can't remember who it was, but he's been involved in these really kind of dramatic cases, because this case lasted like something. I mean, it was like 1992. First, all of the kids were behind Michael Peterson, including Kathleen's daughter. But then as the evidence kind of started coming out, Kathleen's daughter was like, no, he fucking did this. And so she is the only kid that has come out against Michael Peterson. Where it kind of gets hinky is, you remember me telling you how he had
Hinky.
I got to church this up a little bit. So you remember how I said that he had 2 adopted daughters because their mother had passed away?
Yeah.
Okay. So when he used to live in Germany with his first wife, and they had a neighbor and a best friend, Elizabeth Ratliff, and she was best friend, neighbor. He had like walked her home one night or something, came home at like 11 o'clock p.m. The next morning, the nanny came over and found Elizabeth Ratliff dead at the bottom of the stairs with 7 very similar lacerations in the back of her head.
Yes.
And those 2 kids were hers. They were upstairs sleeping. There was a lot of people kind of trekking through the crime scene. Well, the scene. I can't remember. Did they deem that a murder or
a hemorrhage?
Yeah. It from the jump, before as soon as the police got there, he said she had a brain hemorrhage. She's been having a lot of headaches. That's what killed her. And so that's kind of what everybody thought, even though she, so now it's like, ooh, they exhumed her body and everything and then I think they changed the cause of death on her death certificate to say homicide, and just there was a lot of issues in the trial about whether that's what's the word? Whether it should be admissible or not, because is it something that's going to sway the jury, the wrong prejudice. Yeah, is it
right? Is it going to prejudice the jury?
Huh?
Like, is it going to prejudice the jury one way or another because it's a separate incident? Yeah.
Right. And so the other thing that kind of came up was that where Kathleen was going to work on her work, or on his had printed out emails that he had been in communication with a sex worker, and that they were supposed to meet up and have sex. They had very explicit emails back and forth,
and his name was
Brad.
Yes. So
I remember Brad. God bless Brad. He was so sweet.
I love Brad.
I love Brad as well.
Brad's testimony was hilarious.
It was the highlight.
Truly was.
Honestly. When they asked him what types of clients he had, and he said that he has lots of professionals like doctors, lawyers, blah blah. He said, I even had a judge once, and the freaking courtroom cracked up. That was the best.
Did you hear that the judge said, just want to say not this judge?
Yes. Yes.
That was great.
So the kind of where they were getting the motive was, did she find the emails, because it was right there by the computer that she was using? Did she find the emails and go confront him? Because her sister Candace says, there's absolutely no way that she would have stood for Michael having an affair, man or woman. That's why her first marriage ended, was because of infidelity. Yeah. And so she's like, she absolutely wouldn't have stood for that. Michael Peterson says it was an agreement that they had in their marriage that Kathleen had no issue with him being bisexual. And it was another one of those things where it was like, is this going to prejudice the jury, or is it information they need to know? And then they came out with the owl theory that said...
Well, let's talk about that later.
Yeah, okay. Let's get into that later.
What else?
I think that's good for, like, the overview.
Do you want me to go ahead and go on with the first trial and kind of tell him what happened there?
I think we can kind of stop for a bit and discuss kind of the a couple points that that we've already hit on so far.
Okay.
So, first of all, the bisexuality issue was a standout for me in the case, and obviously in the documentary. They talk about it a lot. And being from that area, I kind of being from that area and kind of like knowing what it's like to like knowing how people are perceived, especially in that time period, which isn't that long ago. It sounds weird calling it like a time period, but like it actually is leaps and bounds ago. As far as, you know, that sort of stuff goes. But I think, so it wasn't just the one sex worker. It was like, he had talked to Brad, the sex worker, God bless him. But he had also talked to like lots of other men online. And it was like, they had all of these transcripts, and it did end up, that evidence did end up getting admitted into court. And when they like went through the transcripts, you know, a lot of it is really, I mean, it's cyber sex, right? It's like raunchy. Right. It's supposed to be, but what I found interesting was like, he did make a point to, it did seem like he was working within boundaries. Like, he did specifically state, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm married to a phenomenal woman. And he didn't seem to shy away from discussing Kathleen. I mean, he didn't discuss her to great lengths, but he didn't seem to shy away from telling his acquaintances online that he was married.
Mm-hmm. You know, I honestly, though, I feel like he did that in, like, a bragging way. Like, he called her a dynamite wife and stuff. And I don't know, everything, even all those emails from him and Brad, he's talking about how big his dick is, how big his house is. You know, like, you'll see when you see my house, you'll see blah, blah, blah. I did this, blah, blah, blah. And we know he's a liar.
Right.
About the war.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he said he was like this veteran that
got a Purple Heart.
All this stuff, and that was not true.
Right.
Yeah, but I just felt like when he did that, it's kind of like, I don't know, like, yeah, I'm married, but I'm gonna hook up with you on the side. Like, I already got something good, but like, I don't know. I just felt like it was something for his ego, not really like love for her.
That's a fair point. And I think it certainly could be. For me, it's more like I have experience, not personally, but like I know folks and know about their habits or whatever. And like I have friends who can be in committed relationships like marriage or whatever, who are bisexual, who have agreements with their partners that are kind of exactly like that, where, you know, they're free to sexually explore different things as long as it doesn't go into the realm of a relationship. And so there's like a contract almost, like an unwritten contract that they have boundaries that they can operate within.
Yeah. Well, and yeah.
And so I don't necessarily think that like, I don't think that the way that it was presented in the case is like, well, if this is happening, then clearly he can't love her really. But that's not necessarily the case. There are plenty of couples who live very happily that way in open marriages.
Oh, definitely.
I agree.
Also though, I feel like that would be definitely true, but she ended her first marriage from infidelity, so I don't understand how
then she would be okay with it.
Super okay with like, yeah, you go explore, but like her first husband couldn't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. But we are reliant on Candace for most of that testimony. That specifically is why it ended. That could have been a factor, but maybe it wasn't the leading factor? Question mark?
Sure. Yeah.
It's hard to say because Candace seems like a raging, like,
yes.
I mean, she's hurt so bad, but she is full of so much rage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a firecracker.
Yeah, she will blow right up in your face.
Yeah, yes. She definitely is.
I think too, one thing that really made me angry in the documentary was that it was all of his attorneys and his attorneys' minions sitting around talking about the fact that he was having extramarital affairs, and they were like, you know, would this be an issue if it wasn't with another man, and then they were saying like basically that the fact that he was going through a sex worker means that it wasn't an affair, and so my biggest issue with that is if she did not know and she wasn't okay with it, whether it be with a man, a woman, or a bullfrog, I don't give a shit. It's an affair.
Yeah.
And so, and again, that's just my opinion, and that's my opinion in 2018 and not 1992 when life was very, very different. So just from my perspective, you know, and I think I said this in our live too, is that, yeah, let those attorneys bring their wives in because they're all married, and y'all say that in front of your wives, that if you hook up with a sex worker, it's not an affair, because in their, you know, they're framing it this way to help get him off, but in their lives that would not be okay.
That's I see your point. However, to play devil's advocate, I think it doesn't necessarily prove that it's not an affair. I think that's bad wording. It certainly is an affair, but I think it does it does show that it's not a relationship specifically that he's looking for. It's a transaction.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Going through a sex worker, it's much more of a transaction than it is, you know, looking to, because, I mean, you see also all too often in cases of, you know, homicide in a marriage, somebody meets somebody else, somebody has an affair, somebody decides that that is their prince or princess charming, and that they're going to live happily ever after, but, oh, I have to kill my wife first, or I have to kill my husband first. And
a divorce would just be much more
I know.
cleaner, right?
Just more practical.
I'm just saying.
You know, also though, like, if he's going through sex workers, she's paying for it though, because he didn't have a job. He didn't contribute for like over 2 years to any income.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where I would have a problem.
Yeah.
Wait.
For real.
I'm working and you're hooking up in my, like, he was planning it to be in his house.
Mm-mm.
So it's like, you're going to be hooking up while I'm working. No.
Right. Bankrolling your fun and games.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a lot more complicated than than the prosecution or the defense wanted to paint it, right? Because the defense just wants to sweep it under the rug, and
Yes.
the prosecution wants to turn it into this big, huge, he's having an affair, so clearly that means he doesn't love her, and he never loved her, and he wants her dead.
Right.
I think the real truth is probably somewhere in between.
Oh,
Definitely.
It's not that black and white. And, I feel like, too, again, back in 1992, just the idea of this kind of polyamorous life
Yeah.
was a little more of a novel idea. Whereas now, if they were just like, yeah, we're polyamorous, but I feel like, did she not have that at least one friend that
Who
she
knew?
was able to talk to and said, you know what, we're
Yeah.
this is our life, this is our arrangement, we have an open marriage or what have you. That's where I find it odd that she didn't have even one person in her life that she felt she could share that with. Even if you don't tell everybody, even if everybody in your life doesn't know that you have an open marriage. I mean, shit, if I had an open marriage, at least Donna would know. There would be one person in my life that would know.
Right. And in most, I'm certainly not wanting to generalize, but most people who do have an arrangement like that, their friends know. Like, it's not a secret. They're not ashamed of it. It's just, that's just the way that it is, right? And that's the way that they, work. So that is fishy, that nobody was able to kind of, I guess, confirm that.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that the issue of the emails definitely, and him being bisexual, personally, I think looking at the case, I definitely think that biased the jury against him.
Yes.
I agree.
I think it factored into their decision.
She always made sure to note that it was going to be anal sex, like the lady. What's her name?
The prosecutor?
Yeah, but what's her name?
I forgot.
But like, she was sure to do that, and I understand though, because she's trying to get him convicted. So of course she's gonna play up that part if she sees that it is something that they're not in tune with. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of uncomfortable for that. It's like, because she made it such a taboo thing that he was bisexual, and that's not the case.
Yeah. Girl, the shoulder pads on this woman, Kenny.
I
need you to see her shoulder pads.
Oh my God. Are they glorious? Are they glorious?
She raised her eyebrows so high.
Here, let me get a picture of this woman.
You know I live for a good shoulder pad.
She was struggling, baby.
I love a bold shoulder.
She had them. She had the boldest shoulders. But I think that she definitely, and to me, and I guess it's hard because I'm sitting here in 2018 watching the trial footage, but it's like, to me, watching that, like, if I had been a jury member, that would have hurt her case with me. Because it's like, you don't have anything more to talk to me about that's more relevant than anal sex.
Right. Well, and I think that on both sides, they did a really poor job with the evidence. A lot of it was circumstantial. And then what they had that was scientific ended up being complete shit.
I'm sorry, I just found a picture of Frida.
Oh, my.
Can you send it to us?
Yeah.
I want to see what...
Oh, my.
She is... I think I can send it to you.
That's a nice color blue, though. That blue looks really nice. She's a winter, and she is rocking it.
For sure. Here, let me see if I can, I think I can drop it to you guys. Anyway, yes, I agree with what you were saying about the evidence being so poorly handled, on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, even in the documentary, when they were discussing when the prosecution rested, that when it came time for the defense, they were like, should we mount a defense? I mean, should we just end it? And it's like,
this is his life.
Make a defense. It's one thing to not put him on the stand, but it's another thing to just be like, we rest too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were so many holes that were so obvious and glaring that I was like, are we debating making a defense?
Right.
Because there's like some big questions that need to be answered. And maybe that comes from Rudolph being so cocky.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think the man is very smart. He's incredibly intelligent, but he's pretty cocky too.
Well, and they even, again, said that in the documentary, that they were like, we think that so-and-so should ask this line of questioning because, the jury is not responding well to you. They think you're cocky. They think all these things. And so he would kind of have to pass it off to like his second chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we found out he had a temper when they were going through the slideshow.
Uh-huh.
You remember that? When he was like, I just want this fucking thing to work. And the guy was like, I'm sorry. It must have been out of order. I'm sorry. And he like flew off his hinges.
Yeah, he was tore up, honey. Great. Yeah. He was very angsty, I feel like.
Oh my gosh. And he about lost his shit when it was that episode of Nancy Grace where the girl that was in the courtroom all day was giving Nancy Grace like an update on the case, and he was like, I mean, I understand that Nancy Grace is an idiot, but this girl was in the courtroom the whole day.
So was though. Like that actually did irritate me too, because like I forget what the actual issue was, but she was just like completely like making shit up.
Oh yeah.
And like that also irritated me because I was like, okay, like can we not? And he had a point. Like Nancy Grace would hyperinflate stuff to make money, right? Yeah. Because that's her job. Yeah. But like somebody who's actually there, who is there to just observe fact, like why would you make stuff up and be a disinformation agent for no reason?
Yeah.
So another thing, obviously the bisexuality issue is a huge deal and the emails are a big deal. But do we want to get into talking about some of the blood spatter evidence?
Oh, Lord.
And Mr. Henry Lee?
Yes.
AKA Bay?
Who is Henry?
Right.
Okay,
Henry
but who is this Henry Lee and what makes him Bay?
Oh my. Where to begin?
I mean, I get the name. I like the name, Mr. Henry Lee. Like, I like it. It's good. But what makes him Bay?
He is one of the like foremost blood spatter experts in the country. And he's on like a bunch of like different specials, and like he's evaluated like a lot of different cases, and
including John Bonet.
Yes, including John Bonet Ramsey. So he is just like, if you're in the true crime scene, like him because he's like very frequently like on different like specials and talking about like the evidence and blah, blah, blah.
And this is why I don't cover true crime.
Well, and he's so precious, but bless his heart that they didn't want to use him on the stand because they said, I guess it was like their mock jury didn't understand him because of his accent. And I was like, oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
What's his accent?
I mean, that's Durham though, baby.
Oh, from Durham.
He's
Durham.
I believe he's Chinese.
Oh.
He's Asian. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, I think he's Chinese because, like, remember when they were getting on him about that, like,
the writing in the book?
Yeah, the writing in the book that he had given. Did he give it to Devers directly?
Devers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had written in a book that he gave the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, blood spatter expert. He had written, like, something about, like, good work or whatever, and they were getting on him about that, and he said that it was Chinese manners that... He couldn't tell him his work was shitty.
I feel like a blood spatter. God
damn it!
A blood. Is it splatter or spatter?
Spatter.
Blood.
No, blood spatter. Right? Spatter.
Yes.
A blood spatter expert
Look, over
would
in
make
North Carolina, we call it splatter.
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 I can go over in he's a blood splatter expert. I feel like that would make the perfect serial killer. Right?
That's Dexter.
Yeah.
But was he blood splatter though?
Yeah. No, he was blood splatter. He was a professional. No, that yeah, that was like literally the plot of Dexter though.
I never watched Dexter.
Me neither.
I never watched
You're
Dexter.
so original, Kenny.
I know.
I never watched
What a
Dexter.
great idea, like 10 years after.
God damn
It
it.
was invented.
Fuck off. Fuck all y'all. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm walking out right now.
He's quitting. No. So what is your opinion? Because I don't know. What's your opinion on the blood at the scene and on the work that Henry Lee did?
You go.
I don't really, to be honest, I don't know much about his work with it. The biggest focus for me with the blood splatter I said splatter too.
See, we've ruined it.
Anyway, is the Dwayne Devers issue. That's where I've spent the most focus, and I feel like I kind of skipped through some of the Henry Lee stuff. So if you want to take that, and one of us can do
Devers.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, when I first heard about the case, and I had kind of, before I watched the documentary, basically, I kind of fell into that camp of like, well, there's just way too much blood for it to be a fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, is understandable because I think that's kind of the natural conclusion that you would come to. So it was interesting to me, like the whole time watching it, right? I'm waiting for two things. I'm waiting for the owl theory, of course, that never came to me. So I had to seek it out on Reddit. But I'm waiting for the owl theory, and I'm waiting for Henry Lee to explain this scene to me. So when he goes in and kind of takes a look at everything, I found it particularly interesting that he ran the, I guess the calculations or schematics or whatever for her height. If she was on like the second or third stair going up, and then fell back against the door frame, those marks that were on the door frame, do you remember those that they were thinking that they were like handprints?
Yeah.
That is where I think the top one of those marks is where her head would have hit the door frame if she had fallen back from the third step.
Okay.
And then there was another mark a little ways below that, and then a streak down to the floor. So he kind of like mapped you through if she had fallen back, hit her head on the back of the door frame, and then kind of slid down, how that could have happened. And then if she had fallen over and continued to bleed into the floor and lost consciousness for a few moments or however long, and then the spatter that was the kind of like cloudy. Do you remember when they were talking about the blood that was on the lower part of the wall and how it was like cloudy and really fine spray?
Yeah.
And they were talking about how that blood could have gotten there in the absence of like severe blunt force trauma. And he did the coughing thing.
Yeah.
That showed you how that spray pattern could have been recreated. So to me, it's perfectly logical that she could have fallen, hit her head, knocked herself out, come to, tried to get up, been disoriented and coughed, and kind of slipped around. That could explain the blood on the bottom of her feet. And so I thought that particular section was very interesting. I also thought it was interesting when they pulled, when Rudolph pulled all of the cases, I think it was within the state, that of murder by domestic violence. And I think it may have been narrowed down, don't quote me on it, but it may have been narrowed down to murder, domestic violence, blunt force trauma to the head. And every single one of the cases resulted in at least some type of skull fracture.
Yes.
And she didn't have one. And they're actually, because I've kind of been obsessed with it and been talking to people, and I have a really dear friend who is like studying to be a doctor, and so we were kind of talking about it, and he was explaining to me what did he call it? It was a coup contra coup.
Yes.
And basically, it's where if you fall backwards, your body is moving backwards, but your brain will slosh against the front of your skull. And then as you hit the ground, your body comes to a stop suddenly, and then your brain will kind of slosh back into the back of your skull. And that can kill you without causing any damage to the skull.
Yes.
And so obviously the 7 different marks that were on the outside of her head, right, where she was bleeding, they go into how those could have been caused by the steps and all that stuff. But what was interesting to me was the lack of a skull fracture and that door frame, how the math worked with her height and the door frame and all that. So I don't know if that made any sense, but I thought that it was kind of a compelling case.
Push her down.
Huh?
All I'm thinking is, well, he could have pushed her down, though.
Which he absolutely could have. I don't necessarily think that proves innocence, but it doesn't play into the case that the prosecution is trying to make with the blowpoke.
Definitely.
At all.
My favorite word.
Blowpoke.
Blowpoke.
Every girl needs a good blowpoke every now and then.
It's true. It is true. I was just trying to figure out where all this do you remember when I think it was Candace that was on the stand that was talking about how she had enjoyed her blowpoke so much that she had gotten her sisters 2 blowpokes, and I was like, what is this?
If I got that for Christmas, I would be like, seriously?
I would be like, what the fuck did I do to you, babe?
Yes.
That I deserve a blowpoke.
I will say, in poor Candace's defense, one year my mom got my sister a fireplace little set like that would have included, it didn't include a blowpoke because we're not fancy like that, but it had the little shovel and the little poke. Well, it was like a blowpoke, but it didn't have the blow.
Oh yeah, it was just a poke,
which is what most girls prefer.
Yes, just a poke. Just a poke is fine. Well, a blowpoke is that's like a birthday thing.
Yes. Once a year.
Right, a blow and a poke is hard to come by.
Yes, it is.
Every other time I've
Do what?
Yes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I just said yes. I don't know what
yes. I said. Yeah, so I don't know. I thought that because that was the one thing in the case, I could see the emails being, I could see them having an open marriage and maybe she didn't want to talk about it. I could see a lot of the rest of the evidence, but the blood evidence was kind of something that I really struggled with, and kind of having Henry Lee walk you through that and explain it made it a lot more plausible to me that potentially it could have been a fall. Now he also could have pushed her, but
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the likelihood of well, God, I hope y'all are editing this.
No.
Have you heard
You
our
are
fucking
fine.
show? No editing whatsoever.
We don't believe in that shit. It's the real deal.
My issue though too is when the sun when it first went down and the sun came from the party and immediately tells the police, well, she likes to take a Valium and drink wine at the same time. So they're saying she was so shitty and so fucked up from the Valium and the wine that's how she fell. Well, meanwhile, I'm pretty sure her tox screen came back clear of the Valium. I could be wrong on that. Fact check me. But I do know her blood alcohol was 0.07, and she's still legal to drive with that.
Right.
I feel like probably every state, most states. And so she was not as fucked up as they made it sound.
Right.
Plus, Michael Peterson said they drank 2 bottles of wine. I don't personally believe, because I want to say 2 glasses of wine puts you at 0.08. And so I just don't buy that they drank 2 bottles of wine together if her blood alcohol was 0.07. And so I think that his son was very, very quick to come to his defense of she had to be fucked up because, you know, that has to be how she fell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
And again, why does she have a footprint, a bloody shoe footprint on the back of her pants?
That was something that was kind of very cursorily, God damn it.
That too.
Yeah, yes. That was they skipped around that a lot, I noticed.
They did.
In the documentary. You never really got an explanation for that, really. Because
the documentary was a very, very
very
one-sided.
Yeah, he kicked her down the stairs.
Exactly.
We solved it, guys. That's it. We solved it. Kenny's got it.
He kicked her down the stairs.
You can't argue with him.
Right?
Okay, so did you guys want to go into Devers?
Yes. Okay. Dwayne Devers is a fucking moron.
A piece of shit.
He was so goofy.
He was, yes. He looked, yes, goofy. There's no other way to describe him. So he was the blood spatter expert for the FBI.
For the SBI. For the SBI.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The State Bureau.
And
the only reason that I know that, by the way, is because it fucked me up. Because they kept saying, I thought they were saying FBI in like a really weird way, and I was like, wait, what? So I had to like actually literally look it up and learn what the SBI was, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, why can nobody say FBI? It was a lot.
Well, clearly I didn't know because I thought it was the FBI.
It was like way more episodes than I want to admit before I learned it.
That's so funny. Well, okay. So what he did was he was the expert for the prosecution about the blood evidence, and that, you know, like even in their closing arguments, they're like, if you're saying that the blood spatter evidence isn't true, then you're saying that Dwayne Devers is a liar, and why would he lie? Well, he did. Ended up, they found like 200 cases from that office, and I think like 75 of them specifically from Dwayne Devers, that he had not fabricated evidence, but had left important evidence out. So when they would do the initial, what's that, Tucky something test, the initial test to see if something was blood spatter. God, that's hard.
It is.
After they do the initial test to say that, like the preliminary, okay, yeah, that's blood splatter, they then have to do another test to prove it. Well, there were a lot of instances, and one in which a guy that spent 17 years in prison was acquitted because Dwayne Devers eliminated the same information, that the initial test was run, and it was like, yeah, it's blood. And then when they did the follow-up test to prove it, Marley's getting up. When they did the follow-up test to prove it, it was a negative test. And so he would only include in his report the preliminary, yes, this is blood, and not the negative results of the subsequent test.
Mm-hmm.
And so
basically he would curate like evidence from his
cases.
testing. He would pick and choose what results he was going to use to paint the picture that he wanted to paint.
Right. So he got in a shit ton of trouble. Like, I want to say he was actually prosecuted. I mean, because it was perjury. And
yeah, he was for perjury. But actually, they actually went back and stripped some of the, I forget what the exact details were, but like after the end of the Staircase documentary, you know, when everybody's cursing his name because he is a perjurer, they went back and the SBI ended up having to pay him for like a couple years salary or whatever. So like they went back on some of the charges, not all of them, but I think they took back some of his punishment. Yeah,
I
you should.
wonder why.
I think it was because I can actually maybe find some of the research when I'm not like typing in everybody's ear.
No, you're
And send it to you. But if you do a quick Google search on like what happened to Dwayne Devers, it'll show you that they actually kind of reversed a little bit of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't. I mean, they weren't like he still committed perjury and whatever. But like, I think it was something. It was something with, like court specific stuff where they had punished him more strictly than they actually could punish him, and so they had to roll some of it back. I think.
Well, he definitely deserved everything he got, and So I guess we should probably tell him. So they had the trial. He was convicted. He spent
Peterson
7 years.
7 years. Yeah, Michael Peterson was convicted. He spent like 7 or 8 years in prison. All of that information about Dwayne Devers came out because of the guy that, of course, I can't remember his name.
Was it Wilson?
I don't think so. But he's the guy that spent 17 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit because of Dwayne Devers' testimony. He was released, and so they tried to get a new trial for Michael Peterson based on this new information, which they did. From there, basically they decided that it's too costly to do a new trial. He took an Alford plea, which means he says he's guilty, but he got time served, because an Alford plea is basically like, I'm innocent, but I know that you have enough evidence that could probably convict me, and so I don't want to take the risk, and so I'm just going to plead guilty and like get time served, basically. And that's what he did. So he's out
now. So, yeah. That's the staircase.
That's the staircase? Okay.
That's the staircase.
So he's
convicted initially, served 8 years in prison, and then once all the stuff came out about how the prosecution's blood spatter expert had perjured on the stand, basically, and curated evidence to paint the picture of him being guilty, they got him a new trial, and he ended up settling out of court, taking an Alford plea.
However, Donna found this just recently that Kathleen's daughter,
Caitlin, I think is her name.
Yeah.
She filed a civil suit for wrongful death against him and won.
Did
like
she?
A $25 million judgment.
Damn.
Much like the O.J. Simpson trial. They did after he was found innocent or acquitted.
But they also said from the interest accrued, it was like $30 million.
Wow. Yeah.
That he still owes her.
Yeah.
But they filed for him to be, this was in between the trials. Can't remember if it was when he was still doing his appeals or it was when they were trying to get a new trial, that they requested that the court recognize him as indigent so that he could get a public defender. But then they got one of the good attorneys that it was the guy that was, the attorney was the guy that got the other guy off. But that guy ended up having a stroke, and so his second chair, she did it. She ended up doing the appeals and stuff. But so I think the state basically paid for that because he was as indigent, and so instead of getting a public defender in the system that doesn't know the case at all, they did, they paid them as a public defender.
Oh, huh. Interesting. So I guess that brings us to, well, I guess we can talk about, so one thing that I didn't know until my super movie knowledge friend helped me out. Did you know that Michael Peterson actually dated the editor for this documentary?
Yes.
No.
Yes, he did.
He dated the editor till May 2017. Yes. Yep. From reasonably early on, Like from I think the mid 2000s to May of last year, they dated.
And
Sophie
she
Burnett.
looks just like Liz and Kathleen. Like,
yeah,
he has a type for sure.
How could you do that? Like, how could you get with somebody like that? Because me, I would always be like side-eyeing, like,
yes,
I'd be trying to come down, like trying to go down the stairs to come to work, and I'd just be like, "Excuse you."
Yeah, never walk down the stairs in front of him, girl.
Honey, I learned that from Showgirls. You don't, no. Never. Wouldn't catch me.
So that was an interesting, now that's fact. The other thing that was kind of like an interesting internet thing that has kind of come about following the massive popularity of the documentary, some people suspect that Michael Peterson had an affair with Elizabeth Ratliff.
Yes.
And that Margaret and Martha are actually his children with Elizabeth, who is the first woman who died at the bottom of the stairs.
So, okay.
So the two children that he adopted from the woman in Germany, from the friend of his in Germany,
a quote unquote friend in Germany. Yes.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of like people took some stills from the documentary, and there was like one in particular. It's Margaret and Clayton, and they're sitting right beside each other.
Sorry, Marley is lit.
Lit. That's
Marley,
fine.
do you think Michael Peterson's guilty?
Clearly.
Go. Okay, so about the picture.
Yeah, they were just a couple stills. You can find them if you look online, of particularly Margaret and Clayton next to each other, and they were talking about like how similar they looked.
I could see that.
Potentially that could have been an affair sort of thing, and that, you know, maybe that could work into a motive there.
Well, you know, too, she actually left the kids to him in her will.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was so strange. Like, so that totally makes me think, yeah, an affair. Because why wouldn't you leave them to, like, a family member?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. Like, I mean, I know people who have people who are not necessarily family members appointed to look after their kids if something were to happen to them. And that's just because, like, they have, like, internal dark family shit going on, which she may have had too. True. But I just think it's interesting. Like, it's an interesting idea that, you know, that could be part of it.
Well, and can we just talk about the girls? They were so odd to me.
Yeah, especially Martha.
Yes. The one with the bangs?
Yeah. Yep. Poor thing.
My personal opinion is that whether or not he had an affair with her, I think, which he probably could have, but I feel like if it was just because of an affair, the oldest one was, 2 or 4 years old? Like, why now would it have blown up in their face? You know, like, why now would that affair have led to murder? Because it's not like, I mean, surely 2 kids ago she would have, if she's going to blow it up in his life, she would have already done it. You know?
Yeah.
But what I think happened is that, affair or not, I think she found out that he was bisexual and was going to tell his wife, and that's why he killed her.
Really? Elizabeth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
That's just that's pure conjecture. That's just my gut. I think that's what happened.
Wasn't Patty his wife's first? Wasn't that her name?
Yeah.
She seems like she would have been cool with it, though. I mean, just judging from, like, her interviews and stuff, like, she doesn't seem like the type who would, like, because she seems very, like, open and artsy and, like, chill, you know?
True.
I get a vibe from her that's, like, very, like, bohemian and, like, not, and it is different in Germany, too. Even back then it was.
Absolutely.
They were a lot more accepting. I don't know, though. I mean, that's an interesting theory.
you know that she has to be like, I am the luckiest person on the planet.
Because she didn't get murdered.
Yeah. She's like sandwiched between two people that got murdered.
Well, it said a lot to me, though, that she was there, like, at every major proceeding.
True.
To support him. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like having been married to him and having known him for all those years, you know, they say that and you never really can know what a person is capable of, but I feel like she would have the most insight of anybody, right?
Right.
And so the fact that she was there to be supportive, I found very interesting.
And I'm so that, like, conspiracy theory. I'm like, what does he have on her that she has to do this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wonder why she didn't get the kids.
Yeah, that's sketch.
Yeah, that is very sketchy. Maybe she didn't want him, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that takes us to, do we want to talk about the owl theory before we wrap it up?
Sure.
Oh, yes, we have to.
Okay, so...
What? All right, what? So what is this owl?
Tell him, Kerri.
What's he doing?
This call is being recorded.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I don't know what happened.
Your phone your computer wanted to let us know that it's being
I guess
recorded.
it just wanted to let us know.
The owl said, fuck y'all.
Leave me be.
Yeah, the owl said, girl.
You don't want to know about me.
So it's a particular type of owl. It's like a barred owl?
A bard?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic, right?
Bard.
Bard, B-A-R-R-E-D, I think.
Bard. Oh.
Bard owl. Yeah, it's a barred owl, and apparently they're very common in Durham. I grew up 2 hours from Durham, and I've never fucking heard of this owl.
I've never heard of it either.
Never fucking... I mean, to hear people talk about it online, they literally talk about it like this fucking... Like, these fucking owls, like, scour the skies and just fucking
I don't know. That might have been
down.
what fucking shit on my car that one time.
Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe it was a fucking horde of barred owls.
Maybe. That was ridiculous. We already told that story once, though, so we can't get back into that. But,
yeah.
Kenny got dive bombed by some birds one night in his car. But apparently they make it out like these owls just like fucking swoop down from the sky all the time,
Like
and
in
like
Harry
it's a
Potter.
constant presence. Yeah.
Like in Durham alone. Like
Yeah.
everybody's just using barred owls to send messages.
Just the city of Durham. Right. But I've never even fucking seen one. But apparently they're very common, and the theory is that she was drinking outside with him by the pool, drinking wine. She got up to go inside, and then in the time between when he lost sight of her as she was headed down the path between the bushes from the pool into the house, an owl swooped down and like clawed into her skull, and that's how some of those marks got there. And she was like trying to get it off of her head. And
wouldn't he have heard her like screaming though?
You would
Exactly.
imagine. But
Especially if he was outside by the pool.
right.
Because
So apparently
bitch,
then
I would be screaming.
Then she
Right?
she gets this owl off her head, and she goes inside, and she is going upstairs, I guess, to get cleaned up.
From the owl attack.
From the owl attack. And completely bypasses the kitchen and probably the fucking bathroom, because it's a big ass house. I know y'all got a bathroom downstairs.
Right.
Y'all are not going upstairs every time you have to pee. So bypasses everything on the main floor and is going upstairs to get cleaned up.
Unless
and then
it's a guest bathroom. You know how rich people are sometimes. They won't use the guest
I'm pretty sure if
bathroom.
an owl scratched your fucking scalp off, you would be fine with using the guest room to wash up.
The towels were already perfectly folded, I'm sure.
So as she's going upstairs, that's when she loses consciousness from blood loss and falls backwards. And then she falls down the stairs in the way that was described. And he finds her unconscious. There were apparently like 2 very, very small feathers that were found in her hand. And some like pine needles. I think it was pine needles or bark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was pine needles in her hand that are mentioned, and
But
Like
were these feathers?
microscopic feathers.
But were these feathers the feather of the bard?
Yes.
Yes.
They were.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think.
Yes,
I
they.
don't-
I think they were, but they were very small feathers.
But
That's
they also
interesting,
said
though.
like she could have got those from just being outside, you know, sitting on patio furniture if they are so populated there. You know, anything could have been there. It wasn't like she had bird feathers like in her hair.
I was gonna say, like, did
Yeah.
she fight this fucking bird and like
Yeah.
come back with like the fucking head of the bird? Like, did
No.
she fucking...
No, I don't think it was that clear. But, and then there's another, there's like a dumber version of that theory. Like, to me, that theory, yes, very strange that he wouldn't hear her screaming. Yes, very strange that she would pass by everything on the first floor.
Where does the footprint come into play?
At least that's partly, like, that could be plausible in some universe. But then there's another theory that's like, oh, the owl flew into the fucking house, like, ravaged her
Right.
on the staircase, and then flew out of the house. Like,
You know
I
what
want
though?
to say that they said the staircase she used wasn't the one closest to the door that she would have went into either.
oh, really?
Like, I think. I don't know.
I do know she was on the back staircase. That's
Yeah.
all I know.
She wasn't on that
But
main
I feel-
floor, that main staircase.
Well, okay. I will say that in Florida, they've got osprey that when they're like mating, laying eggs, I don't know what they're doing. You can literally just be walking and they'll attack your head. Like if they think that you're any threat. Like at my school, they would like have signs out and like you couldn't go sit on like the patios and stuff because like the osprey or mating or whatever. And then, like our secretary legit got attacked by one. So it does happen.
But they're like, I think there were some reports, but none of them were lethal. You know, so it's just like, really, this one attack. I don't know.
Look, I just
Yeah.
truly believe that there are no coincidences in murder, and just the fact that these take out the affair, take out the bisexuality, take out the owl, take all of that shit out, and you have a guy that has two women in his life that died under the same exact circumstances.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I'm like, okay, I could see your owl theory once, right? But
Right.
this happened very similar, like before. Sir, I'm
Yeah.
side-eyeing you.
Yes.
What
I
about
don't know.
children? Were any of the kids like ever thought to like?
Well, some people did bring that up in our live.
Yeah.
And I could see that. Like, he kind of thought, hey, this worked before, we can cover it up this way. And aided that way of doing it. Because I think it's known that the son didn't really like Kathleen.
Well,
Yeah.
and I do think too that I mean the we're totally gonna get sued for this. The daughters, the one that Martha, is that the one with the hair?
Yeah.
I feel like she spiraled a little bit, and I don't know if she's spiraled because of just the situation that she was in, and she lost two mothers. Because I mean, they called her mom.
Yeah.
That she lost two mothers, and or if it was like, you know, because when you listen to them on the documentary talking to their friends and stuff, the older one was very controlling about the ways that Martha responded to things, and like very like, no, we believe he's innocent, you know. And so I don't know if maybe she was second guessing him or if she knew more than she admitted, you know. I don't know, something was up with her, I feel like, though.
Yeah, she was kind of odd. All I know is that it cannot be Todd because, honey, that is a jawline of nobility and strength and justice, and it just can't be Todd. Period.
Right?
It could maybe be Clayton,
Yeah.
but it just can't be Todd. every time he was upset, I was just like, I love you, but also your dad is probably a murderer. So it's just not going to work out for us.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Star-crossed.
They were all just so odd. I would not want to be over there for a family function.
Yeah, it was a little. I feel like they did a lot of just like sit, and I mean, okay, there's a lot going on. Clearly, it's a dramatic time for them as a family, but like I feel like there was a lot of times where the whole family would just be like sitting around a room staring at each other, and I'm like, that's not really how like a normal family operates. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh, we did not discuss something that I don't think we discussed it on the live either. But when he is being interviewed and he says his line about I whispered her name into my heart 1,000 times.
oh yeah,
Or something, and it was just like, okay, sure, you didn't rehearse that. Like, you're a writer, you probably thought that was the best line fucking ever.
yeah.
And all it did, I was like, oh no, he's like a sociopath, like a narcissist.
Yeah.
I don't like him. And trim your eyebrows.
And trim your eyebrows, sir.
Every single thing he said, guilty or innocent, everything he said was calculated.
Yes.
I need to see these eyebrows.
Yeah, clock them.
Oh.
What's his name again?
You
What's his
don't
name?
need
It's
to.
Michael.
What's his name? Michael Peterson. God damn it. Look, we have to be professional.
Shut up.
We're working with people.
But look, one thing too is that's like the funny thing kind of about all of this is how people are like, I am never marrying someone with the last name Peterson.
For real.
Michael Peterson,
Drew
Drew
Peterson.
Peterson, Scott Peterson, all those motherfuckers killed their wives.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it.
Allegedly.
What
Yes,
the
allegedly
fuck?
don't sue us.
Or
Thank you
what?
for covering our asses with the allegedly. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
What is up with these brows?
Kenny's just now experiencing the brows.
They're so bad.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm sorry, he looked better after prison.
I feel like he looked like a fucking skeleton after prison. But
Yeah.
Can we talk about how you got all this money and you ain't fixed your teeth? I can't trust you.
Yes!
I cannot
Yes.
trust you if you have all this money and you didn't fix your teeth. I love everybody. Everybody is beautiful. But damn, honey, you have made a lot of money. You could
Oh my
fix them.
gosh.
Look, I'm broke AF and I got braces.
For sure. Like, I mean, you gotta. Like, there's shit that I would fix about myself if I had a whole bunch of fucking money. Best believe I would. Like,
Yes.
but yeah, no, that just strikes me as odd.
Oh my god, yeah.
But again, I think it speaks to his like narcissistic tendencies where he tries to be like this very intelligent, eccentric novelist with, you know, like even in the documentary, how he would just be like sitting there smoking his pipe, listening to classical music, and was like, "This is the song I wanted to play at her funeral," and you know, just it's just like, cut the fucking act.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
So I guess then we have come down to the final two questions in our discussion. The first of which, and I guess I'll pose them together so that you can answer both of them. And we'll go around in a circle. And we'll leave Kenny for last because he's the newest to the case.
Okay.
So my two questions are, number one, is Michael Peterson guilty? And number two, is he innocent? And keeping in mind, I actually really liked, I agree with you guys that David Rudolph is kind of an asshole, but I did like his explanation in the documentary of the difference between not guilty and innocent.
Yes.
So the first question being more, do you believe that there's enough in the case to convict him? Do you believe he's guilty? And then the second question being the question of innocence outside the court's domain, basically.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
You guys.
Okay.
I pick you.
Okay, well, I think, sorry, Marley is hot.
Drunk and hot.
Okay, so I think he is guilty,
Okay.
but in the court, I don't think they proved it beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it.
Okay.
Mainly because I think the prosecution really screwed themselves with the blowpoke, them focusing on that. And so when they had that owl theory, and Kerri just pointed to an owl pillow I have.
Oh.
It's a conspiracy.
Oh my gosh.
I just think that since they narrowed down on that, it kind of, for me, when they kind of disproved, disproved some of the stuff, it put doubts in my mind. I don't know if I could have convicted him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you think he is not guilty in a courtroom, but not innocent of the crime?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that during the first case, like the first time at trial, I would have convicted. But I think that it worked out exactly how it should have, given what we know now about Dwayne Devers. I think that he absolutely did it, but I think that the Alford plea is how it should have panned out, given that we found out that not all of the evidence was heard and all of that. So I would have convicted him the first time, but I do agree with the Alford plea.
Okay. I'm so torn on this case. And I know you guys can probably tell. I do not think he should be held guilty in a court of law. I don't think that I would have even convicted the first time. I think that the emails, all of those transcripts, the bisexuality, I think that was irrelevant to the case. And I do think that even if it is not irrelevant to the case, it definitely prejudiced the jury. And should have been barred from the proceedings because of that. So I don't, and then just like
an owl.
Yeah. Should have been barred like the owl. Yes. So I definitely think he should have been held not guilty in a court of law, because I think that the prosecution did a shit job of proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt. As far as the question of innocence of the crime, though, I don't think I'm willing to say that he's innocent. I'm copping out so hard. So I don't think I'm willing to say that he's innocent, but I just don't see, I think that it comes down to people have to have a reason. And I just don't see a reason for him to murder her. I think if he was the type of person that he didn't want, that let's say that all of the stuff about them potentially having an open relationship and her having known about the bisexuality and all that stuff, let's say that all that is not true. And he was the type of person that if she was going to drag his bisexuality out into the light of day, that he was going to become enraged and murder her. I don't think that behavior is consistent with his behavior after the fact of when all of that was brought out into court. And the way that he dealt with it and worked through it then, that doesn't seem to me consistent with somebody who would have reacted that way in the moment. If somebody was threatening to bring it out.
Well, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, because apparently money is all I think about. But I'm just thinking, if she didn't know, and she's like, you know what, get the fuck out of my house, you're done. Like, even if he doesn't care about his secret life coming out, he has no money. He'd have to get a job.
Right,
because,
but what
you know,
sort of what's by killing her? You know, she's the person who's working, who's bringing money in.
she had a
Did she have a massive
$1.5
life?
million life insurance.
She had a huge life insurance policy.
And he was the beneficiary.
Okay. Well, then that may change it. Because I wasn't sure as to what the details were on the life insurance. Because, like, to me, I see this dude who, like, now has, like, what, like 5, counting Caitlin, who, you know, obviously didn't end up hanging around, but counting Caitlin, like 5 kids that he now has to take care of. And they're mostly grown, but, like, you know, clearly they were all still living at home at the time that happened. And, like, or some of them weren't. But, like, I just see it as, like, now you have to do this alone. Whereas before you had somebody who was working and, like, bringing in income and all that stuff. So I don't know. But $1.5 million does make it a lot easier. So.
Yeah. Well, and then he could write a book about it.
True. I don't know. I'm very torn on it. I'm not willing to say he's innocent, but I'm also not the person who's, like, die hard, like, he's guilty for sure. Because I don't know. It's just such an interesting case. What do you think, Kenny? Now that we've drug you through this for multiple hours.
So, what I would be interested to finding out more is this, like, his relationship with his wife. Like, she had obviously been through, like, a triggering moment with, infidelity, right?
Right, with her first marriage.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, like, and not to victim blame by any means, but, like, I'm wondering, given that, you know, his bisexuality, I almost wonder if, like, there could have been something that she held over him in that sense, like, don't leave me, because, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, don't leave me because, like, I can't deal with that again.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that, like, played into maybe her allowing him to, like, go do that thing because she didn't, you know what I mean? Like, she didn't want to lose him.
Right.
And I almost wonder if that played into, like, a sense of being controlled, which, like, from his perspective, and if that might have triggered, like, you know, a moment. Now, I think I probably would say that he is, for me, like, the fact that this has happened before is, like, a huge, like, I can't get over that.
Yeah.
And I almost wonder, like, if this, like, maybe the one that happened before, like, was maybe intentional. I don't know the specifics. And then maybe this was, like, not, like, maybe this wasn't premeditated, but then, like, sort of happened to fall into, like, the same, you know what I mean? Like, the same sort of, like, okay, maybe he had already been through this one time. I don't know. It's weird for me, but that's just the perspective that I look at it. Like, maybe it was not, like, premeditated. Maybe it was just, like, a snap moment.
Yeah.
And because I don't believe that a fucking, like, the feathers get, like, the feather part gets me. So I'm like, I don't believe it was the fucking owl. It was the fucking owl. That's my verdict.
You're
it was
just,
the
like,
fucking
totally
owl.
bailing.
It was the goddamn owl.
So do you think, so to the question of innocence.
To the question of innocence, I don't think that especially given everything that came out with this blood spatter guy.
Nailed it.
I don't know that I would have found him guilty in court But I don't think that he is innocent.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think that he is innocent.
The footprint also gets you.
Yeah, the footprint.
You keep
gets
coming
me.
back to that.
Nobody keeps like, what the fuck? Like, I can. All right,
Yeah.
so maybe if there was blood everywhere, like maybe in a moment, like stepped on her when he was like freaking out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, like, we laugh at that, but like, I would be the fucking worst person at a murder scene. I would fucking mess everything up.
But like, was
unintentionally,
his
because I would
shoe-
just freak out.
But like, did they not get like a shoe print, a size, or anything? Like,
I mean, they
to
have the
match it?
shoes. Don't
Right.
they? Because didn't they have them in court?
Yeah,
that match the
it's
print.
verified it was him.
Yeah, that's his shoe print.
Well,
So
and I
what was
think
his
that, like,
reasoning behind that? Like, what was the reasoning behind the footprint on her? The bloody
they never
footprint.
touched on it. They
Why
never-
the fuck would they not
in
have
the-
touched on that?
Because the documentary, he was shook in the editor. They're not going to
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. But I mean, no. But even in court, they didn't talk about that. Like, that seems
Not
like a
from
huge
what I
piece of evidence
found.
to me.
Yeah.
Like, why was
And, you
that
know,
just sort of glazed over?
My biggest issue too is that with all of the experts that his defense had and all the technology that they used and all of that they could not do some sort of recreation with a computer to show you how she would have had to have fallen to get those 7 lacerations on her head. And they couldn't show you how that could happen. And so I feel like it's one of those things that if they could have shown you, they would have. But they never talked about it because they couldn't show you that.
Well, I think Henry Lee went through some of that, actually. He did. Now, he didn't have like a animation or anything that we saw in the documentary. But I think he did go through some of that. Maybe not all of it, but he did attempt to do a little bit of that, what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think for both of them, as much as I love Henry Lee and Goofy Devers, but I think they both wanted to fit the evidence to their theory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Which was the biggest
I do
problem
agree.
with Devers from the beginning, because there was literally no scientific method to his
Testing.
tests. You know,
His
he
tests were
literally was
so
like-
fucking ridiculous. When they
it
showed the
was so
footage
awful.
of them, oh my
Oh
god.
my gosh.
What
yes.
a joke.
It's like, that is 5th grade science when you learn the scientific method of, okay, here's our
Yeah.
hypothesis. This is the, I mean, it's like, come on.
My favorite part is when they had that blow poke, or maybe it was like a mock blow poke, and they had the sponge and they were like hitting it with the like stick,
Yes.
and it fucking broke, and like a piece of
Yes.
it breaks off, flips into like the fucking testing area, and the guy stops and looks at it and then just like keeps going, and I'm like, no, like you're testing
Yes.
like blood spatter, like that's gonna fuck up shit, like.
Yeah, the testing was god awful.
Yeah.
All in all, it makes me hope I never have to go into a courtroom, because everyone, even the experts, suck.
Yes. Yeah. No, it totally.
It's like,
Well, because again, depending on who the expert works for, you're buying their testimony.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, literally, because you're paying them to say what you want, what you want them to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to hire them if they don't say that.
Right.
And so they're going to say that to get hired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justice is definitely not blind.
No.
It's definitely manufactured.
Yeah. I think regardless of I think the documentary can be criticized for being very biased. But I do think that it does do a really good job of showing how poorly our legal system handles cases like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the OG of the Netflix dramas of like with the documentaries, or like the docu-series with like Before Making a Murder and before
Mhm.
what's the new one right now? The
Evil
Genius.
Genius.
You
Yeah.
know, it was the OG.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Courts are scary. Let's not murder people. Or
Yeah.
almost murder people. Or be around when owls murder people.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that because I like, you know me, like it's just I see one thing and then I'll like hook onto it and I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
you did it.
I think all of us, you guys, are kind of fucked. Like if we're ever involved in any murder case, even in a
absolutely.
tertiary way, like they're gonna go back through our podcast and be like, no, they did it.
Yes.
Yes.
I have totally thought that before and been like, no, I would never end up on a jury because they're going to be like, oh, you have a true crime podcast? Hell no.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
I
they
would
ever
just-
look through my browser history on the shit I look up for the podcast, it would be Dunzo.
Same.
That is so fucking true.
Or like the list of different topic ideas that you'll make and like save to your
Oh my
computer.
God, yes.
That list fucking terrifying. Like
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, what
No.
the fuck is that? Like you'll have like a really good idea and you'll just like jot it down because you don't want to lose it, and then you go back and revisit it and it's like, what the fuck is this?
yes. Yes.
If I was in you couldn't have me in a court of law because I would just refer to like my crystals and tarot and that would tell me.
And they'd be like, convicted.
Flip it over. Oh, death card. Sorry. That's my verdict.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. Like,
Oh
it's
my gosh,
awesome
yes, this
talking with you guys.
Great idea.
I think we should do it again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For real. It's nice having other ladies in the room to sway the balance of
It is
things.
nice to have other ladies. Other ladies.
Other ladies.
I am a lady
Oh my gosh.
of the night.
All right. Well, we will let you guys go, but thank you so much for hanging out with us, and
Yes.
it was fun.
Thank you so much for asking.
Oh yeah, no. It's definitely fun having you guys as pod besties, so.
Yeah.
All right. It feels weird to end it without saying stay spooky, but I guess bye then.
Keep it real and stay spooky.
Oh, can we say creep it real and you guys say stay spooky?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I got
Okay.
really excited.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll go first and then you guys.
What do we say?
You say stay spooky. Okay. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Creep it real.
Stay spooky.
I'm obsessed. You guys are the best.
Call recording off.